I'm 42, and up until a month ago, I thought I'd seen enough betrayal in one lifetime. My ex-husband cheated on me 10 years ago, with a coworker, and I left him for good. We had one child together, my daughter Alina, who's now 21. I did everything to raise her right, gave up weekends, holidays, and so many opportunities to make sure she had everything. I was the one up with her during nightmares, school projects, heartbreaks. Her father, Mark, was around, but mostly for appearances. Our divorce was messy, but after a few years we found a rhythm. Alina spent weekdays with me and some weekends with him, and by the time she was 16, she mostly preferred staying with me. She and Mark were never that close, and I honestly thought she kind of resented him for everything he put me through. That's why what I'm about to say feels like I'm living in some kind of twisted, alternate reality. About 6 weeks ago, I got a wedding invitation in the mail. No call, no text. Just a formal white envelope with embossed gold letters. Alina and I had spoken a few days before, and she never mentioned a word. No boyfriend, no engagement, nothing. The name on the card said Alina Grace Wells and MJ Carter. Wells is my last name, Carter is Mark's. My first reaction was denial. My stomach dropped, but I convinced myself that maybe it was a cousin, or someone with a similar name. I figured the MJ might stand for something else. Mark's full name is Mark Jonathan Carter, but still, I told myself I was being paranoid. I even laughed about it to a coworker. Then I saw the venue listed on the invite, a vineyard just outside the city. The same one Mark and I had visited for our 5th anniversary. The same place where he'd told me he wanted to renew our vows. A place with too much history, too many memories. And that's when something shifted. I started looking at the invitation again, but this time, with suspicion. Why hadn't she told me she was engaged? Why wasn't there a photo on the invite? Why did it say nothing about the groom's full name? And worst of all, why did it feel like I wasn't supposed to ask? After rereading the invitation at least 20 times, I texted Alina, kept it light, just asked her if she had any big news. No response. I waited a few hours, told myself she was busy, then I called, straight to voicemail. The next day I got a message that said, "Can we talk in person? I've been meaning to tell you something. Coffee tomorrow?" No details, no explanation. I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept replaying old moments. Alina as a toddler sitting on Mark's shoulders, her crying after their arguments when she was 15, her once saying she didn't want a boyfriend like her dad. I couldn't understand how any of that added up to this. When I met her at the cafe the next morning, she looked nervous, not excited like a bride-to-be, almost like she was hoping I wouldn't come. We sat down, made small talk. She asked about work, I asked about school, and then I couldn't take it anymore. I just said it. "Who is MJ Carter?" I watched the blood drain from her face. Her hands trembled a little as she wrapped them tighter around her coffee cup. She looked down and whispered, "It's Mark." I blinked. The world around me blurred. I thought I misheard. I had to have. I asked again, slower this time. "Mark, who?" She looked right at me and said it, said his full name like it was normal. Mark Jonathan Carter, my ex-husband, her father. I felt like I left my body. Alina's voice was calm, almost rehearsed. She said she wanted to wait for the right time to tell me they'd grown close over the last few years, that I wouldn't understand because I was too emotionally involved. Too emotionally involved? I had raised this girl with everything I had. I had sacrificed for her in ways she'd never even noticed. And now she was sitting in front of me, telling me she was marrying my ex-husband, her own biological father, and acting like I was the problem for reacting. I couldn't find the words. I think I blacked out for a second. She kept talking. Something about love not having rules, how biology wasn't everything, and how Mark had changed. She even had the nerve to say he treated her better than any man she'd ever met. I asked her if she even understood what she was saying. She said she didn't care what anyone thought. That love was love. Then she handed me a second envelope, a VIP invitation to the wedding, front row. She wanted me to watch them say their vows. And then she hugged me like she hadn't just detonated my entire reality. After she hugged me, I just sat there, frozen. I couldn't even return it. My arms were limp. My mouth was dry. I think I mumbled something like, "I need time," and then I left. I don't even remember the walk back to my car. I just know that when I got home, I locked the door, sat on the floor of my hallway, and cried harder than I had in years. Not the kind of crying you do when something breaks. The kind you do when everything breaks. Your heart, your identity, your understanding of the people you thought you knew. I couldn't process it. Was she being manipulated? Was she brainwashed? Was this some delusion? Because surely, this couldn't be real. This couldn't be my daughter. This couldn't be him. The thing is, Mark wasn't just a cheater. He was a liar. A skilled one. The kind who made you feel like you were the crazy ones when he was out doing God knows what. When we divorced, it wasn't just because of the cheating. It was because he would gaslight me into thinking none of it happened. I'd find evidence, and he'd twist it, deny it, disappear for days and come back with some elaborate story that almost made sense. It wasn't until after the divorce that I learned about the other women, the credit card debt, the second apartment he was renting for work. He disappeared from Alina's life off and on throughout her teens, popping in with gifts and big smiles, and then vanishing again. So how the hell did that man manage to win her over? I couldn't sleep that night. I kept hearing her voice over and over again. He treats me better than anyone ever has. And I started thinking about the things she didn't say. She didn't say how they met again. She didn't say when the relationship started. She didn't say if anyone else knew. She didn't say what she told her friends. But worst of all, she didn't say whether she still considered him her father. I know how that sounds, believe me. I wish I was making it up. But this was real. Too real. And when I finally pulled myself off the floor and opened the second envelope, I saw something that made it even worse. It wasn't just a wedding. It was a destination wedding. 3 days. Private villa. All expenses paid. With Mark footing the bill. And a note at the bottom. Mom, please come. It would mean the world to me if you could be there when I start the next chapter of my life. I want you to see how happy I am. She wanted me to watch. For 3 days I didn't respond. I ignored Alina's texts, let her calls go to voicemail, and left the invitation on my kitchen table like a rotting piece of fruit I couldn't bring myself to throw away. Every time I walked past it, my stomach twisted. I didn't eat. I barely slept. It was like I was grieving someone who was still alive. Then, the 4th morning, I got a delivery. A package, wrapped in silver foil with a wax seal I instantly recognized. It was Mark's. He used it on our wedding invitations years ago. He used to love custom touches, always obsessed with aesthetics, presentation, performance, never substance. Inside the box was a silk robe, custom embroidered with the words Mother of the Bride on the back in gold thread. There was also a check, $10,000. No note, no card. Just the robe, the check, and a printed itinerary with my name at the top. He was paying me to come, and that's when everything snapped. This wasn't just about Alina being lost or confused. This was him, playing puppet master again. This was Mark, sinking his claws into someone close to me, not because he loved them, but because it gave him power, because it made him feel in control. And this time, he'd gone so far that he was standing beside my daughter, slipping a ring on her finger and calling it love. I started to spiral, wondered if maybe this had been going on longer than I realized. Had he been grooming her? Had he been planning this for years? I went to my safe and pulled out an old file, the one I thought I'd never need again. It had every court document from our divorce, copies of therapy notes, police reports I'd never followed through on, and most importantly, evidence of his manipulation, of the things I never told anyone, not even my parents. When Alina was 14, she stopped speaking to him for almost a year. Back then, she said it was because he broke a promise. I never pushed for more. I thought he'd disappointed her, maybe missed a school event or forgot a birthday. Now I wasn't so sure, because if this wasn't new, if this relationship had history, then I wasn't just watching my daughter marry my ex. I was watching her disappear into the arms of a man who had ruined my life once, and might be doing it to her now. I couldn't go on like this, spinning theories alone, drowning in questions. I needed facts, and there was only one person I could think of who might have them. Mark's sister. Jessica and I hadn't spoken in years, not since the divorce. But back when things were good, we'd actually been close. She was always the blunt one, the one who didn't fall for Mark's charming act. She once told me, years before I left him, "You only see the surface. My brother's got layers you don't want to peel back." So I reached out, texted her. She didn't reply. But the next day, she called me. No greeting, no pleasantries. Just, "You found out, didn't you?" That confirmed more than I expected. She knew. She knew about Mark and Alina. I asked her how long it had been going on. She went quiet. Then she said, "You don't want the truth." I said I did, that I needed it. So she gave it to me. It started when Alina was 19. They reconnected, she said. Spent more time together. Mark was trying to be a better father. At least, that's what he claimed. But then things got strange. Jessica said Mark would talk about Alina in ways that made her uncomfortable. He'd mention how mature she was, how women today grow up faster. At first, Jessica thought he was just trying to justify being in her life again, but the comments kept coming. Then came the rumors. Neighbors started whispering that they saw Mark and Alina together late at night, leaving his apartment, arriving at hotels. One of Jessica's friends saw them out to dinner, candlelight, hand-holding, kissing. Jessica confronted him. He denied everything, said it was lies, said people were jealous. But Alina stopped visiting Jessica's house after that. She blocked her number. The family stopped talking about it. That was 2 years ago, which means this has been happening for 2 years. 2 years of secrecy, 2 years of deception, 2 years of pretending she was just a daughter visiting her father. Jessica didn't cry when she told me. Her voice was cold. Matter of fact, she ended the call with something that still haunts me. You're not the first woman he's manipulated, but if you don't stop this, your daughter might be the last. After the call with Jessica, I didn't leave the house for 2 days. I sat with it, let it rot in my chest. Every hour brought more memories I didn't want. Old conversations, old signs I had brushed off, things I'd dismissed as coincidence. But one memory came clearer than the rest. Alina was 17. It was right after her senior prom. She came home late. Her makeup was smudged, her dress wrinkled, but she was distant, quiet in a way that didn't match the usual teenage moodiness. She avoided eye contact, went straight to her room, and stayed there for nearly the whole weekend. When I asked if something had happened, she told me she got in an argument with a friend, said she was fine, said I should stop acting like a therapist. I let it go. That night, I remember hearing her crying through the wall, and I didn't go in, because I thought she needed space. Now, I wonder if that was the night everything changed. It would have been one of the few weekends she stayed at Mark's place. I only agreed to let her go because she'd been asking for more independence. She was graduating soon, wanted to bond with her dad again. She said she forgave him, said he wasn't perfect, but he was trying. That weekend, I remember he texted me out of nowhere, thanking me for being understanding, and now I feel sick. Because what if I handed her over that night, not knowing what I was walking her into? What if that night was the start of something she didn't even realize she was being pulled into? What if she wasn't in love, but conditioned? I started looking through old photos, albums I hadn't touched in years. There were pictures of Alina and Mark at her graduation dinner, his hand around her waist, a little too low, her leaning away slightly. Subtle things I never noticed before because, why would I? Because I was her mother, and I trusted him. I trusted her father. Now, I don't know if this is a wedding or crime scene with centerpieces. The worst part? I think she really believes this is love. After the photo albums, I couldn't take it anymore. I told myself I was overthinking, that maybe I was seeing things that weren't there, as my mind was cracked open and bleeding. But the idea wouldn't let go of me. What if this wasn't legal? What if I was about to attend a wedding that wasn't even allowed to happen? So I called a lawyer. I asked a simple question. Is it legal for a father to marry his biological daughter if she's of age? There was a long pause, then a sigh. Technically, it depends on the state, and if there was no legal record of paternity, no acknowledgement on the birth certificate, no official declaration, it gets murky. If the father never legally claimed the child, the system might treat them as unrelated. Mark never wanted to be listed as Alina's father, said he wasn't the paperwork. At the time, I thought he just didn't want to deal with child support. Now I see it was a long game. I hung up, shaking, and dialed the non-emergency line for the police department in the town where Mark lives. I gave the operator his name. I didn't even finish the sentence before she said, "You said Mark Carter?" Her tone changed. She asked if I was okay, asked if I was calling from a safe place. I told her I wasn't in danger. I was calling because I believed my daughter was. Then she told me something that made my skin crawl. Mark had been investigated 2 years ago after someone filed an anonymous report about a possible inappropriate relationship between him and a younger woman who appeared to be his daughter, but nothing came of it. No one followed through. The young woman wouldn't speak to them. The case was closed, buried. I asked if that woman's name was Alina. She said she couldn't confirm that. I knew. That report happened right when Alina turned. The same time Jessica said they reconnected. The same time she started cutting off old friends, skipping holidays, spending long weekends away. It wasn't a scandal. It was calculated. And now at a VIP invitation stage of a wedding dress or a prison sentence. I didn't plan it. I didn't script the words. I didn't even tell anyone what I was doing. I just drove. It was a Tuesday, 2 weeks before the wedding. I knew from the itinerary he sent that he was staying in a short-term rental downtown to prepare for the big event. The same neighborhood where we used to live together. The irony nearly made me vomit. I parked across the street and waited for hours. When he finally stepped outside, freshly shaved, wearing a pressed white shirt and sunglasses like he thought he was starring in some indie romance movie, I got out of my car and walked straight toward him. He looked up, he saw me, and he smiled. Not sheepish, not nervous, smug, like he'd won. Before I could even say a word, he opened the gate and said, "I was wondering you'd show." His voice hadn't changed, still smooth, still performative, like every sentence was designed to keep him 2 steps ahead of you. I asked him what the hell he thought he was doing. He tilted his head, said he didn't want to start off hostile, that we could talk like adults. I asked him how long it had been going on. He said, "Does it matter? She's happy." I told him I'd spoken to Jessica, that I knew about the police report. That's when the smile slipped, just for a second. He said Jessica was jealous, and always had been, that she never liked seeing him loved. I asked him if he really thought this wedding would happen, if he really thought he could marry his own daughter and get away with it, and he laughed. This soft, controlled laugh that sounded like a man who'd already accounted. Then he said something. She's not my daughter and she's my that's what she wants. And I give her the. I felt like someone had punched the air out of my lungs. He turned, walked back toward the door, and just before going inside, you had 20 years. You raised her, but she chose me. That's all that matters now. And then he closed the door in my face. No yelling, no shame, no hesitation. Like this was just another business deal to him. I stood there for a while, stunned, shaking, and for the first time in this entire nightmare, I felt something I hadn't felt before. Not shock, not betrayal, war, because now I wasn't just a broken-hearted mother. I was about to become the woman who stopped this wedding. I had one shot. The wedding was a week away. They'd rented out an entire estate by the water, flowers, catering, live music, a 3-day celebration of love, as the invitation called it. But what no one else knew was that I had spent the past 6 days doing nothing but collecting ammunition. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat much. I barely remembered to shower. I was possessed. I hired a private investigator, gave him everything. Old emails, court papers, witness names. I called the lawyer again. I pulled Alina's birth records, my hospital bills, even the grainy home videos from when she was little, begging her daddy not to leave again. I contacted the detective who filed the old police report. He remembered the case, said he always felt something was off, but the girl refused to speak, so the investigation hit a wall. That girl was my daughter, and now I was going to speak for her. The rehearsal dinner was invite only. I wasn't invited, but I walked in anyway, wearing black like I was going to a funeral, because I was. I had printed photos, emails, documents, a flash drive. Alina was sitting at the front table, glowing, tipsy, surrounded by friends. Mark was by her side, beaming like a man who'd tricked till he saw me. His face cracked for a split second, then the smirk came back. But this time, I wasn't alone. The detective walked in right behind, followed by a woman detective service who'd helped with Alina was an adult. They'd seen too much to stay silent. Mark stood up fast, but I spoke first. Loud, clear, no tears this time. This man is about to marry his biological daughter, and he's been grooming her for years. You could have heard a fork drop. I walked to the projector screen they had set up for a slideshow. Someone tried to stop me. The detective waved them off. I plugged in the flash drive and played the video. It was an old home movie. Me, filming Alina's 6th birthday. She's blowing out candles. Mark is behind her, arms around her waist, smiling, calling her his little girl. I turned to the crowd. Still think this is just a coincidence? I handed copies of the birth certificate to the wedding planner, gave the lawyer an envelope with bank statements showing when Mark started sending money to Alina fake consulting jobs, starting at age 17, gave the detective Jessica's statement. Then I looked at Alina. She was frozen, her champagne glass trembling, eyes wide, like a spell had just cracked. And Mark? He did what cowards always do. He ran, literally shoved past people and ran out the back, but it was too late because the room had seen After Mark ran, chaos erupted. People whispered, gasped, stared at Alina like it was a stranger. Some walked out immediately. Others just stood there, stunned, trying to process what they had just seen, what they had almost celebrated. But I didn't move. I kept my eyes on my daughter. She hadn't, not yet. She just sat there, absolutely still, like her entire reality had been yanked out from. I saw her blinking fast, trying to breathe. Then she looked at me, not with hatred, just confusion, like she had just woke. The next few hours were a blur. The detective followed Mark, but he was long gone, left everything behind. Phone, keys, wallet, gone. Alina didn't speak. She didn't yet. She just walked out of the venue with 2 bridesmaids holding her legs couldn't carry her. The estate canceled the rest of the event the next morning. There was no wedding, no vows, no dress, no first dance, just silence, scandal, and legal paperwork. I didn't hear from Alina for 4 days. I didn't expect to. Then, just after midnight on the 5th day, I got a text. Can I come home? She showed up that night. No makeup, hair in a bun, wearing one of Mark's old hoodies I hadn't seen in years. Her hands shook as she stepped inside. She didn't say anything at first, just hugged me, for a long time, then finally whispered, I didn't know. I didn't want to know. We sat on the couch for hours, both of us breaking in quiet waves. She told me she thought she was in control, that he never touched her inappropriately when she was young, but always made her feel like she was the special one, like I never really understood her, but he did. That's how it starts. Slowly, carefully, like grooming a story, one where you're the chosen one and everyone else is the villain. And I realized she hadn't betrayed me. She'd been pulled into a place where up was down and love was possession, and now she was finally clawing her way out. As of today, there's a warrant out for arrest. The investigator found enough to reopen the case. Financial exploitation, psychological coercion, possibly more. He hasn't surfaced since the wedding. Alina's been staying with me, seeing a trauma specialist. We haven't talked about the wedding since she came home. Not directly, but she leaves her bedroom door open now. She asks to go on walks with me again. She's starting over. So am I. The house is quiet, but it doesn't feel empty. It feels like healing. Slow, imperfect, but real. I don't know if Mark will ever be caught, but I do know this. There was almost a wedding. There were almost vows. There was almost a future built on everything I feared most. But instead, there was truth, and that's what saved her. That's what saved both of us.